Hello, good evening. Happy Self-Healing Saturday. We decided to go live a little bit later tonight so that, I can tag you in the video. Isn't that
fun? Hey, look at that.
That's interesting. That's a new development.
How does it know?
It knows you're here. But yeah, so we normally do this in the morning on Saturdays, but we thought maybe we would get a different kind of crowd of people live in the evening. So here we are. Hope you're having a wonderful day, getting a lot of stuff done, having a lot of fun. Today we wanted to focus on the dealing with of negative people. So if you're new to the GNM group, if you're kind of getting your mind around the fact that you know that your mindset affects your health, your mindset affects your body, it's affecting everything about how your body is responding. Oh, I want to make sure that's plugged in the back. So maybe you're nervous that the people in your life, you're like, yeah, I get my mindset's super important. How I'm responding to my reality is really important. But what do I do if I come across negative people? How is that going to affect me? Is it going to derail my process? You want to just leave it and see?
Yeah.
Sorry guys, we're having some technical stuff.
It's like Russian roulette with USBs.
Yeah, right?
Okay,
you know what? I didn't go live in the group like I intended to.
Oh, we're a little discombobulated.
Give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. Do you want to chime in while I share this?
You just have to let it be okay.
Yeah.
What were you talking about?
Negative people.
Negative people. The thing for me about this, and like the way that I like to start thinking about this, like when I'm relating to the whole thing, is like when I'm trying to deal with negative people, what I'm usually really trying to deal with is my experience of negative people, right? I've found throughout my life, negative people have caused me less problems than have the experiences that I create in response, or maybe to say in reaction to negative people, are really the source of probably 98% of my problems with negative people. The people themselves and the things that they're doing, the things that they're saying, only account for a very small percentage of my actual issue. Most of, when I say like, I'm trying to deal with negative people, what I'm really trying to deal with are the experiences of frustration and anger that I encounter, or that I myself create in reaction to someone that I perceive as being negative. It's the worry, the nervousness, the anxiety, the stories that I tell myself about the fact that that person is behaving negatively around me. They're this way, and that means that I can't be positive, I can't feel good, I can't accomplish what I want to accomplish. They're being negative towards me, and that means there's something wrong with me. I've done something. I have to feel bad every time this person is negative in this way. And there's this whole thing there's a story that I tell myself, and I set up this situation which says our dog is over here, and he's like insisting on playtime, and he's like taking toys and just pushing them up against me, and like so that's one of the things for me. Like the first thing is to begin not to like, and this is a really like when we talk about thinking about things in new and different ways, we're never asking you or suggesting that you should or ought to try to force yourself to believe that these things are true. It's really more about pondering the possibility. It's really more about try out this new and different way of thinking about it. Because if you try to force this stuff on yourself, if you're anything like I was, you immediately get this psychic pushback. If it's a new way of thinking, if it's something different than what you've thought about before, like so for example, just to be frank, like the way I used to think about that was that people are assholes. People are assholes, and they're inconvenient, and they're inconsiderate, and they get in my way, and they're just a big problem for me to deal with. That's how I used to feel about it. And if old me would have tried to force myself to believe what the new me kind of believes about this kind of stuff, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I would have gotten this psychic pushback, this tremendous resistance, because it's too big of a leap. You just can't get from one to the other in one single step. And so the way that I do it is I let myself keep feeling the way that I do feel, keep perceiving the way I do perceive. And I just kind of introduce just a little grain of doubt, just a little, just tiny, this flicker of awareness that says, it's possible for me to see things, experience things, think things, believe things in this way, and for there to be other equally valid, perhaps more valid and much better feeling ways of experiencing that whole thing. That will begin to just kind of, that's the secret. So many people, they try to go from like, so you've got an experience right now in this moment of negative people that's exactly as good as it is, exactly as bad as it is.
It's so loud. We're sorry. They may not even be able to hear him, but he's chewing and he's licking and
our dog is like
drinking
drinking water and all this. So you've got an experience of the negative people in your life that's exactly as good as it is and no better. And that will always be true. Like your experience will always be exactly as good as it is at a given moment in time and no better than it is in that moment for that moment. And it's a tremendously important and valuable and empowering skill to be able to let it be okay, that you're exactly as good at creating exactly as good an experience as you are, and you're not any better at creating any experiences that are any better than the ones that you're creating. Your ability to let that be okay is a master skill in and of itself. It improves your experience here and now, and it also allows you to tap into your capacity for really improving that experience over time. So let that kind of be okay, and then start pondering new and different ways of approaching this thing. Start thinking about your experience in different ways. Let it be okay that you're having the one that you have right now, and keep having that one. Just keep letting it. It's because it's coming. It's just there, right? You don't have to deny it. You don't have to resist it. You don't have to stifle it. You don't have to push it down. You don't have to force yourself to turn your back. You don't have to do any of that. Nothing dramatic, nothing forceful, nothing willpowery. It's all about, let me just keep this thing going, and let me introduce into the mix. It's just like eating stuff, right? You don't want to eliminate everything in your diet. Like if you go on a really stringent diet plan, if you try to eliminate all the negative thoughts from your life or all the negative feelings or experiences, you're going to feel like you're starving because you're like, I have nothing to feel. There's nothing left. What you want to do is keep doing everything the way you have up until this point and add in one nice thing. It's very nice to create the same old negative experiences that you've always had and add in the thought that you are capable, even if you can't see how, you're capable of creating a new and better and different experience than the one that you're currently creating. You add that in, and that just starts the ball rolling, and it tends to snowball and really avalanche in a positive way.
Yeah, and it kind of depends if you are in a state. So if you realize, I am in a conflict, like I have a conflict that is active right now, and I realize now, because I've been studying GNM, and I realize that being in conflict activity is sending messages to my body that says, adapt, things are not safe, you are not okay, and that your environment may be giving you constant invitations to keep this conflict active, whatever it is. And now that you're recognizing this, for some people, depending on your level of skill of dealing with it and kind of transmuting the actions, the activities, the things that other people say, if you're not skilled at it right now, let that be okay. Like Steve said, let it be okay that you're as good at it as you are and not any better. But you may need to retreat from those people. And that's the whole thing about, well, do I need to cut all these people out of my life because I really think that it's their presence or something about them that triggers me to become angry, and that anger is then triggering my body to make adaptations, or they're triggering me to feel bad about myself, and when I'm in their presence, when they are the way they are around me, I tend to devalue myself, and now I'm recognizing the connection between their the way they treat me, what I do inside my mind in response to that treatment, and that triggers, my muscles and this fibromyalgia or this chronic pain or whatever it is that you happen to be dealing with. So there are several ways to do it. If you've got the kind of time and resources to, retreat away, to kind of get out of the presence of those people for a while so that your body truly can just kind of relax, that is one approach. But I don't necessarily think it is, one, practical for everyone. And then it's not really a long-term solution, because what we teach and the skills that we want to show you how to do is become anti-fragile, to become a person who can take the stuff from other people, but can recognize how I am the filter, I am the measure of all things. What you say, all of these things external to me only mean as much as I give them meaning. And so when you start to really accept that autonomy and that ability to take the negative feedback, the negative stuff that you're getting from your external reality, and realize that there are ways, even if you can't get there right now, even if you don't know how to transmute the kind of crap that life is throwing at you into, good, resourceful thoughts and feelings and behaviors. Even if you can't get there right now, there's somewhere you can get that's better than where you are right here now in this moment. And so when it comes to just dealing with the negativity of other people, you've really got to realize how much power you have over the quote negativity that you are interpreting from them.
And that's that thing too, a lot of what the only time I ever encounter a negative person, and this is a funny thing that we were talking about right when we were on the ride home, is this idea that anytime I call somebody negative, I'm always referring to my experience of them. We've even had instances where you've remarked, gosh, that person was they're just really not having a good day today. And I kind of chuckle about it because I happen to have been in a really good and resourceful state. And when I was there, the way they were just kind of washed over me. It didn't affect me, right? And so when I kind of tend to label someone as really negative, when I experience them as negative, because it's not that you give voice to a sensation that's the problem. It's the fact that you're having an experience of someone else that's not really enriching the quality of what it's like to be you. And so we're looking at things that you can do to change that experience, not because you should be able to put up with negative people, but because it's nice for you to be able to respond resourcefully in terms of the experiences that you create without relying on everyone else to be as positive and uplifting as maybe they could be in all sorts of situations. But when I'm in that good and resourcefully responding state, it's like they can't touch me. It's like their negativity just cannot get to me. I perceive it and I recognize it as, I know it's out there, but it's like I'm seeing it through really bulletproof glass or something like that, and it really can't harm me. On the other hand, sometimes you're in a really great state and I'm not in a great state, and we interact with somebody and I come away and I'm just like, God, boy, they were really awful today. What's their problem? And what I'm talking about there, what I'm kind of like lamenting, what I'm giving voice to is not anything about their behavior. It's the manner in which I allowed their behavior to impact the quality of my state. You know what I mean? And sometimes my state is not impacted by them at all when I'm really kind of more responding resourcefully to it. And so I think the thing is, it's not necessarily the message is that you should figure out a way to be able to put up with negative people so that you can allow them to stay in your life forever. That's not it at all. It's you have a certain situation that you're in right now, things going on with your health, maybe things going on with close relationships that it's not easy to change what those dynamics are, and perhaps those relationships are not really conducive to the healing that you want to have happen for you. How can we respond resourcefully to the gestalt, to the totality, to the whole big picture of where and when and what's going on in your life right here and right now in a way that kind of improves what it's like to be you? So how can we allow you to create an optimized experience of a less than optimal circumstance so that you can start really kind of creating the sort of results, oh, look, there he is, really start creating the sort of results that you want. And that's one of those things too, I really think whatever's going on in your life right now, you can change it. Whatever your situation, your circumstances, whatever the problems are, whatever the things are that you want to move towards and create and attract and acquire, I think it's possible. I think it's possible for you to create what can be. The thing is, though, the way that you do that, truly, is that you change your experience of what is right now. We have to find a way to get you to explore and to expand and to discover the degree to which you're capable of creating experiences that are perhaps better than ones you've ever created before, getting you to discover your ability to really kind of respond. And what I mean by response is respond behaviorally, which is to say different things to these people, rather than maybe lashing out or fighting with them, whatever. But I also mean respond experientially. I mean respond when they're negative. You tend to think certain things in reaction to them, sometimes unconsciously. Maybe you assign certain meanings to it. Maybe you feel certain feelings almost like a reflex. And learning to do those things differently, if the way that you're doing them now really aren't serving you, allows you just to create a different experience of negative people. And that for me is in my case, truly, it was my experience of negative people that was my big problem. That was what I was really complaining about. And I spent years of my life thinking that my problem was negative people in my life. But in fact, it was that I tended to create negative experiences in response to them. I allowed them to run my experiential show. If I ran into a negative person, that let me know it was time to have a bad day. That let me know it was time to feel bad. That let me know it was time to stop doing what worked and start doing what didn't. Why? Well, because they're being negative. They're not cooperating. They're behaving unresourcefully. So let me respond to their unresourceful behavior with more unresourceful behavior that will allow that kind of negative experience to spread.
It really is about your state. It's like if you are in a good state, if you are kind of on point and you are dwelling in that place of where you want to be, and you are evoking and you're feeling and you're interpreting things in terms of what you want and how you want to feel, and you're living kind of this version of yourself that you want to be, you stop seeing people in the world in the same way, and you actually stop having the buttons that you used to have. Because that's really one of the big things too, is realizing that, again, your signal detection of their negativity is criteria, unconscious mostly, criteria that you have for getting upset for certain words that they say, certain tones of voice, certain things that you've always gotten upset about before. And so really you interpret that as their negativity, but it is something about your interaction. You know what I mean? It's like there's always two sides to it. And if you were in a better state, if you were feeling better, if you had been, all morning, if you've been focusing on what you want, and writing down all of the things that you want to do, that you want to have, that you want to create, and you start embodying the feeling, you start becoming that version of yourself. The people in your life that used to be really negative, you truly, like, when you change, it's amazing the experience that you start to have of other people. When you change, you, like, people who you actually thought were just negative, grumpy people, maybe your whole life, you say, wow, they've become a lot nicer, as though they've changed. But really what's actually changed is you have changed. Your position, your way of seeing them, your way of filtering them, your buttons have changed. No longer, you kind of just refuse to be upset by things that before used to super, super irritate you. But when you realize how important it is, and how many things that we get upset about that really, truly are unimportant, because it's a story. We are telling ourselves a story. When you say that, that triggers me to tell myself a story about myself that's not good, about you that's not good, about what's going on in my past or going on in my future. All of these things in this moment, I'm in this state of resistance. I want you to be different. Something about you is not okay, and I'm resisting the fact that you are that way. And when you start to just kind of like let that melt away, that feeling, like, you really do, you start to experience people different than you ever have before. And really, it's you're the one that changes. And so that's got to come first. And so a lot of people, and I used to kind of be this way too, a little bit like, like proselytize positivity. Like, you're not being positive. Why are you being so negative? I'm healing over here. I've got something going on, and I really need you to, like, be positive for me. Like, you need to change. And obviously nobody likes to be told they need to change, and so that isn't getting anybody anywhere for you to be telling.
People love that. People don't like that.
Yeah, telling everybody in your family, listen, it's conflict that's causing, it's not all those things I thought that were causing my disease. It's actually the fact that I'm in this emotional state. I've got emotional traumas. I've got these, these conflicts going on, and so all of you need to change now, because I need peace in my life. And so that's not necessarily going to go over very well and going to get you very far. And then what is that going to do? It's going to set up this, I can't heal. I can't get to where I want to be because I'm stuck and I'm surrounded by these people, but I need to be surrounded by these people because they take care of me and I need to be taken care of right now. And so it just sets up this really dysfunctional, unhealthy dynamic that will keep you stuck as long as you continue to stay in that state, and until you move and until you start to, let yourself accept the idea that you could be perceiving your situation different than you are. And that's really what it is. It's most of the people like that we coach and work with, nothing in their external life changes, and we don't want it to change. It's all about changing your experience of the things that are going on. And just opening your mind that there is another experience, because I used to think I did not have an experiential reference point for believing that I could respond any differently to my surroundings. It was like, they said this, they did this, this happened. If I talked to 10 people on the street, they would agree with me that I am justified in feeling this way, and it is their fault, and come on now. It doesn't have anything to do with me. And it's like,
I would recollection of that. So
with
funny.
Me?
Yeah, the 10 people on the street thing. I remember.
Oh yeah. And it's like, but I feel so justified in it. And that's one of those things where you've got to realize, like, do I want to be right and justified in my anger at your negativity or your thing that, I'm perceiving as you not cooperating with my desires? Or does that have everything to do with a story that I'm telling myself and all the stuff going on behind my scenes that I'm not even aware of? That's the thing, is we're so unaware of our own process. We're so unaware of how we take, like, these sounds from the outside world and that come in, and there's so much meaning that we slap on to these people, to the words they're saying, to the way they're behaving, and all of it is our own stuff. And so when you start to recognize your own stuff, when you start to recognize your own buttons, when you start to see, maybe these negative people that I thought I was dealing with in my life, really, it's all about me. And that's what it is. It's all about you, and it's all about how you are interacting with the external reality in which you find yourself.
Yeah, it's so interesting. The basic theme about this, and this is like, I actually was writing just today about resistance and about how we create these problems for it. The basic theme, if I'm like the pattern, the master pattern that really takes powerful people, powerful creators, which is what you are, and allows you to kind of create a sensation of disempowerment, is you step out of rapport with the rest of reality. You make it so that you are not a cooperative component of reality. Like, you are a part of this reality in which you're working. And when I look at something, when I look at a person, and I say to myself, it's a problem that they're the way that they are, I'm not going to work with that. I'm not going to work with that aspect of reality. That's one whole, that's one unified field of existence that is cleaving from itself, that's separating itself, it's creating a division where there is no real division there. And that is where the discomfort comes from. I tell myself a story that says, there's a presupposition that says, what's the problem? Where's the problem? Why can't I have what I want? Why can't I be okay? Why can't I create the outcomes that I need? Why am I feeling so bad? And I scan my environment for an answer to that question. Whose fault is it? Who is wrong? What is wrong? Where is wrong? When is wrong? Oh, it's there. That's the problem. That should be other than it is right now. So I tell myself a story that convinces me, that allows me to make experiential sense, which places me in that place where my intuitive reaction is to emotionally resist the fact that some aspect of what is reality is as it is at a given moment in time. Now, when I make sense out of doing something internally, I always do it. You never do something that doesn't make sense to you in the moment that you do it, and you never don't do things that make sense to you in the moment that you allow yourself to make sense out of doing them. So I tell myself, what am I going to resist? Oh, I'll resist that. And when you're resisting, it doesn't matter what you're resisting. It doesn't matter how socially justified or how justified you feel or how many people would agree with you that you're right in resisting that. You suffer to the degree that you resist the fact that a person, including yourself or a situation or a circumstance or somebody else, is as they are, as it is in a given moment in time. You are cutting yourself off from your power because you're refusing to accept, to interact, to work with, to transmute, to transform, to change this reality because you won't allow yourself to allow it to be as it is in a given moment in time. That's where the sensation of disempowerment comes from. It really is not from the fact that the person's being negative. It's from the fact that you're telling yourself a story that says that negativity is why I can't do what I must do. That fundamentally is a problem. And that's the universal pattern. That's what everyone does when they're feeling disempowered. It's what everyone forgets to do when they suddenly feel empowered and they start doing those things that serve them. And when you recognize that, when you allow yourself to accept that they are as they are in a given moment in time, and that's the thing about negative people. And the interesting thing about negative people is this is not an apologetic kind of like, be nice to them, they can't help it. Bullshit like that doesn't really appeal to me. If it's a part of what it's like to be you, it's your job just to respond resourcefully to it. Like, that's the bottom line. And that's the great equalizer. Whether you're rich or whether you're poor or whether you're sick or whether you're healthy right now, whether you're feeling great or feeling awful, whether you're moving, regardless of what's going on, we all have one job, and that's to look at what it's like to be us, to be in touch with, to be aware of, to be conscious of what it's like to be us, our experience of consciousness, and to respond resourcefully to what's coming into our field of consciousness. That's it. Not to question whether it should be that way, not to question whether or not it could have been different, not to ask whose fault it is, not to ask why it has to be this way, or lament it, or whine about it, or make ourselves feel awful about it, or tell ourselves this is why I can't have what I want. Like, literally, whatever the shit is, respond resourcefully to it. That's the master skill. That's the beautiful opportunity. And it's a weird, almost kind of like an out of body. It's an out of experience to see people who in the past you would have used as an excuse to step out of rapport with your creative process, and you say, oh, here's an opportunity to respond resourcefully when in the past I would not have. What a useful thing that is. Not because they deserve it, not because I want to be a better person, because I want to be in conscious control of my creative process, right? Because I want to do things on the basis of the effect that the doing is going to have on the quality of my experience of what it's like to be me. And when you recognize that, you see that your problem, my problem, is the fact that I believe that having these problems are problems. That's that thing. And that's when I start resisting them rather than solving them. See, problem solving feels really great, right? Figuring out how to work through this stuff feels wonderful. Refusing to problem solve because I think that the fact the problem exists is such a problem that I can't even begin to do anything about it, and therefore I refuse to kind of like respond resourcefully to it. That's like where and like no one does this because it's not a character flaw, right? It's not not that you lack virtue or anything like that. It truly is like an information processing error. It's that you, in that moment in time, don't have access to a way of thinking that allows you to make sense out of doing what serves you. Literally, as soon as you have access to it, as soon as in that moment you've got the awareness and you've got the thought set and you have just present at hand the tools that are necessary to create the kind of changes that you want, you always start doing it. There's nothing defective about you that you've got to like forcibly correct by sheer force of will or by like really unpleasant spiritual rituals. It's not about that at all. It's just about learning to pay kind of closer attention to things that you don't normally pay attention to, thinking about things in new and different ways, and really making yourself the measure of all things and saying, is the way that I'm thinking about negative people, is the way that I'm reacting to negative people, to the reality of negative people, is the perception that I'm creating of negative people and the experience that I'm creating in response to that perception and the behaviors that I'm engaging in as a result of having the experience that I'm having, as a result of perceiving these people in the way that I am, is it improving what it's like to be me? And if the answer is no, then you start making those changes. And very often this manifests as like you cut these people right the fuck out of your life. I mean, I don't get it wrong, and I'm saying that you put up with them forever, but it allows you to start exercising your choices consciously. And that's why we don't prescribe like, oh, if they're negative, get rid of them. Oh, if they're negative, it's your fault. You should just perceive them in a different way. Because these prescriptions are never universally applicable. What's right for you to do might not be right for someone else to do. But what's right for everyone all the time, always, is to start exercising choices consciously, because you're already making all these choices. You're already choosing all this stuff. It's just a matter of whether you're doing it consciously. And a miraculous thing happens when a person begins to choose consciously. They begin to choose in a way that's exactly appropriate for improving the quality of their experience of what it's like to be them. It might not be the same as what you choose to improve the quality of your experience of what it's like to be you, or the choices that I make to improve the quality of what it's like to be me. But one thing that we all share in common is that when we choose consciously, we choose what serves us. You know what I'm saying? And so it's about cultivating within yourself the capacity to choose more consciously. Nothing wrong with you. It's just there's this missing ingredient, right? There's this opportunity for improvement, which itself, by the way, affords a tremendous opportunity for experiential enrichment. We don't think it would be better if you already knew how to do this. We think it's wonderful that you know exactly as much as you do, and we know exactly as much as we do, because the experience of learning is so worth the experience of having spent a period of your life not knowing what you're going to know eventually. It's all a part of it. It's all one thing. And that's one of those things, too, about this non-resistance stuff is when you say, I'm going to accept reality, I'm not going to resist reality, extend that courtesy to yourself, extend that compassion to yourself, extend that willingness to work with your process to yourself. The fact that you, like we said in the beginning, are exactly as good as you are, doing exactly as much as you know how to do, which is exactly as much as you know and not more. Let it all be okay. Respond resourcefully to the reality of all of that. Respond consciously. It will be resourceful. You'll do what serves you. And the next logical step, I mean, it just kind of reveals itself. It really is. It's weird. It's weird how easy it is, but it really is this easy. Why wouldn't it be this easy? Why would it be hard to be you? I mean, why would creating an experience, like you won the lottery, you got consciousness, that's the magic sauce. You know what I'm saying? If you're not conscious, if you're not sentient, if you don't have a capacity for thinking, if there weren't something called what it's like to be you, if there were nothing that it was like to be you, I don't think we could help you. I don't really know what to do about that. I haven't figured out how to fix that yet. I don't know how to like help my dresser drawer improve the quality of what it's like to be it, because there is nothing that it's like to be that, as far as I know. But if you are having an experience, you don't have any problems, right? You just have opportunities to optimize that experience. And I think thinking in that term, like thinking like recognizing how powerfully positioned you are right now really starts activating within you really positive processes for improving what the quality of your experience is.
Yeah, and there's some really interesting stuff that your question brings up, Rachel. What happens with if you're with someone who says, I'm okay, you're not okay, and you feel, I'm not okay, you're okay? A big part, and this is actually something we're going to do in our live video that
Wait, are those consistent?
For tomorrow. Yes.
Okay.
And like, another really interesting thing to realize is the role that these people are playing in your life, because everyone in your life is there for a reason. And a lot of times, again, we are playing these roles, we're living these non-autonomous lives, and we're not aware of the role that certain people are playing in our lives and the games that we play with these people. Like, if it weren't for you, you know, some people you attract into your life for the express purpose of you getting to fulfill this game, which says, I would be able to do all of these great things. I would be able to heal. I would have been a great star if it weren't for you. And so that's actually a game, like a documented game that people play with one another. A lot of wives will do that to husbands. If it weren't for you, I would play tennis and I would do salsa dancing and I would do all of these different things, but I can't because, you refuse to do it.
I've got a weird anti-salsa dancing.
But it's just it's such an interesting thing when you start to realize what your experience is made out of and realize why are you in the relationships with the people that you are? Why is your relationship the way that it is? And you start to see it more for what's going on behind the scenes. And that's part of what we do in our coaching, is helping you to make these connections and see how you may be fulfilling these, these existential scripts, these existential positions that you just aren't aware is going on. And so when it becomes revealed to you, when you develop certain types of awareness about yourself and your experience of, life creation, your creative process, you start to say, oh, geez, I know exactly why and how and when I made this existential decision or that attracted this person into my life. I see the reasons. I see my influence from my parents, and I see how that has played a role in why I am the way that I am, why I respond to people in the way that I do, why I'm with the people that I'm with, why my children are the way that they are. I mean, you really start to see things that most you're not supposed to see. It's kind of like the behind the scenes. It's the actual script. It's the actual behind, what's going on there. And then you say, oh, that negative person is playing their role in my life perfectly. They are evoking from me what is, necessitated by this unconscious life script that I didn't realize that I was living.
To me, it's like people who are really super into wine. You know what I'm saying? They take a drink of wine and then they can talk for 45 minutes about all the different elements. Oh, there's undertones of this and overtones of this and medium tones of saddle leather and huckleberry and there's all, what I'm talking about? There's all these different
nuance.
And to me, this is basically developing your experiential palette. It's about giving you the ability to be, because you're constantly imbibing this life experience. And for a lot of people, they're just glugging it down. And they're like, oh, this isn't very good. I don't like it, but it's all there is, so let me just keep drinking. But when you actually, you learn, oh, that's what meaning assignment feels like. Oh, that's what that really unfortunate meaning, unresourceful, oh, that's what resistance feels like. Oh, and so for Rachel, it's very interesting, right? So when you start to experience yourself as responsible for the fact that one of the experiential consequences of feeling that you're not okay and other people are, is that you attract people who will play that role for you. It's as if you are putting on a play. It's like your life is a drama, and you've got a casting call, and you say, listen, I'm kind of like a masochistic existential position here. I believe that I'm pretty much not okay. I've decided that that's true. I think it's possible for other people to be okay, so I'm kind of looking for someone who thinks that they're okay, but believes that other people aren't. Would you like to be in my play? And then you can mistreat me, and then I can feel like I deserve it, and then I can try to placate you, and then not work, and I can use that as evidence that I'm really not okay. Then you can mistreat me some more, and you're not consciously thinking that, but what you can begin to do, and this is a really useful thing, this is a tremendously useful thing, especially when you learn not to beat yourself up about this stuff. We're just learning about ourselves. When you learn not to resist the fact that you are as you are, you're never supposed to be other than you are. And so if you're effed up and totally unaware of it, that's exactly how you're supposed to be in this moment for this moment. That's a part of the creative process. If you're effed up and semi-aware of it, if you're effed up and acutely aware of it, if you're effed up and starting to get better, wherever you are, it's where you're supposed to be. And I'm talking about by your own estimation, right? And real life mastery is learning to let it be okay that you are where you are, not somewhere else. Once you figure out how to do that, you're a master of life, whether you found your life partner, whether you've made your first million, whether you're happy and successful yet or not. When you learn how to let it be okay that you are where you are, not somewhere else, you are on your way to where you want to go. You are already winning at life at that point. And so I think recognize that. So when you've got the ability to experience the fact that this person is in your life as the logical consequence of thinking and believing and perceiving as you have up until this point, oh, okay, so this is what it's like to be me as in terms of life partners when I decide that I'm not okay. It means something different, because in the past it means, gosh, this person's really mistreating me here. I guess that means maybe I'm actually not okay. He didn't even know that so and so told me I wasn't okay when I was younger, and he's treating me just like they did. So that's just more evidence that my decision's correct. When you flip that around and you realize, oh, when I stick with this decision, when I keep making this decision, because a decision is not an event, a decision's a process. You're like continuing to decide, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, I'm not okay. And it's just so good that you don't even know that you're doing it anymore. And when you recognize, oh, this is the type of asshole that I attract into my life when I'm deciding I'm not okay, not you. If I was deciding I wasn't okay, I would attract my version of this person into my life too. And that's like, there's something really liberating about that, where it's like, gosh, if I hit my hand with a hammer, my hand hurts, and there's like the most successful person, the most talented person, the most beautiful person, the richest person in the world, that's true for all of them. If they hit their hand with a hammer, their hand's gonna hurt, And when you recognize there's nothing wrong with you, is that there's things that you are doing, that I am doing, that Melissa's doing, that work more or less well in terms of creating an experience of what it's like to be you that you want, then it's just a matter of, okay, how am I doing this? How can I do something different? Because when you know how you're doing what doesn't work for you, you know a lot about how to do something different, which is the same as not doing that thing anymore. And then you start creating something different. And you can see, I think, hopefully, like, this allows you to create a different experience, right? I'm still in this moment in time. If we're talking about you here in the situation, you might still be attracting people into your life who are saying, I'm okay, you're not okay. But your experience of that is different now. You see what I'm saying? Because now you know, I haven't quite calibrated my creative process yet, so I'm still attracting assholes into my experience about 80% of the time. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. That means that I'm trying to learn to play this new song and I haven't quite gotten the chord progression down right? So I'm playing this life experience. I'm playing my mind as like this instrument that in the music that it plays is my life experience. And I'm trying to get this riff down. I'm trying to really just master this thing. And I kind of get it, and if I'm really paying attention, I can do it well. But if I lose myself or if I miss one step or something like that, I start messing up and the sound that it plays doesn't sound as good. That's the asshole coming into your life again, right? And you just say, what does that mean? Does that mean that you should quit? Well, no. It means you're getting better and you're continuing to get better. That's the spice of life, this whole idea of perpetual improvement. It's a wonderful thing, isn't it? How many men, how many women in the world are in a position where they're able to experience attracting awful people into their life in such a resourceful way? to have a meaning, you know what I mean? Where you can say, oh yeah, that means that I can clean up my riff a little bit. I can kind of improve this. There's some room to get better here. And again, I guarantee you, as soon as you have access to that new meaning, you will use it. You will never go back to deciding it means you're actually not okay once you're really in a position where you're capable of consistently, consciously choosing to decide that it means something different. You create a different experience of the same reality, which is to say you create a different experience of people thinking that you're not okay and that they are. That just begins to weed those people out, because you don't even have to say, I feel differently about this now, and so now I have to behave differently. When you start feeling differently, when you start experiencing differently, when you start experiencing your feelings in a different way, over time your feelings begin to change, which is to say, if you're feeling inadequate, but because we now are assigning different meanings to what the feeling of inadequacy means, your experience of that feeling begins to change. So you're experiencing your reality in a new way. That starts to change that reality. That starts to change the feelings. And as those feelings begin to change, the behaviors begin to change. Now, maybe that means telling people to F off. Maybe that means just not replying to someone's texts where you always have before. Maybe it means kicking somebody right out. I don't know what it's going to mean for you. It doesn't matter. I don't need to. It's going to manifest exactly in the appropriate way at exactly the right time. You will just find yourself. As easy as it is to do things that don't serve you right now, I used to find it so effortless to do so many things that didn't serve me. I would eat way too many cookies, as my classic example. I would get short with you. Would I not communicate with you in exactly the way that was necessary to upset you so much that even if what I was saying was true, you couldn't hear it reliably, right? I could, and this is the thing that I would do to frustrate myself. I would have such an airtight logical case, undeniable that I'm right in the situation, and I would manage to communicate it to you in a way that totally overrode whatever the insight was that I had to offer to the situation. So as I was smart, but I wasn't smart enough to not be an idiot. You know what I mean? But as soon as I had developed the ability to do that, I started doing it, and it was like, oh, and that was one of those things too, is recognizing, how do I get myself to the point of making sense out of interacting with you in a way that I know doesn't work? Well, I tell myself stories that cause me to feel really bad. Like I say, because she's that way, nothing I say will ever work. Okay, well that's a picture of reality that's made to resist. That's a feeling of futility that is custom designed to get me to emotionally resist the fact that some person or some situation is as it or they are in a given moment in time. And when I made sense out of doing it, what did I do? I did it. And if I beat myself up about that and felt bad about it, I would just continue to do it. I had to say, all right, she's about as good at creating her life as she is, and I'm about as good at creating my life as I am. So I got an experience here I'm not really happy with. Some of it happens to involve her, but it's not her experience, it's my experience. That means it's my responsibility. So I'm either going to improve this experience or I'm not. I'm either going to kind of inherit the experience that my dad kind of modeled for me, or I'm going to do things to get this thing better. So am I willing to say this is reality, this is the way that it is, or am I going to keep tinkering with this thing to improve it? And when you give yourself the freedom to do that, once you know there's a way, and once you get through this bullshit about there's something wrong with me, and that's why things are the way that they are, and you recognize that you haven't quite fiddled with it just right to get the result that you want, you will never ever stop. And there's magic to this. As soon as you get to the point where you will never fucking stop, you don't have to keep going forever. It starts working out. But there's something about that, like you reach that level of certainty and determination. Like with this business, I will never stop doing this business. If I'm 75 years old and I still haven't made the kind of money I want to make, I will still be doing this. And maybe that's when I'll be super successful. But there's a point at which you reach this place that says, I will never quit doing this because I know there's a way to make this just absolutely explode in exactly the way I want to. That's usually the point when things start working out for you.
Yeah. I hope you guys are seeing, like, you know that quote, oh, like everything is a mirror, life is a mirror. This is like the nuts and bolts of how your life becomes a mirror, how you evoke from your external reality these things that you do not want. They are fulfilling stories and meaning assignments that are already going on within you. And so it's like, you're playing this game and you feel so immersed in the game, but you set up the rules. You said, okay, when this dice is rolled, this is exactly what's gonna happen, what it's gonna mean. You set the whole thing up. You set all of these traps for yourself and you didn't realize, and here you are playing the game. You're like, oh, why does this suck so much? Oh, why does this suck so much? But what's happening is there's just stuff going on that you're just not aware that you are running the show. And this is the whole idea of upgrading your concept of yourself, because your life is a perfect reflection of your concept of yourself. It's what you feel you deserve in some way. It's, and you're like, well, no, I feel like I deserve much better than this. But what you feel like you deserve is not having a good experience, but feeling like you deserve a better experience. Do you see that? Like how you can have all of that go on, and it's still, as long as you're in a state of resistance and as long as you're seeing all of the things that you don't want in your life, that is still a position. That's still a concept that you have of yourself, that you could see the path. I mean, and a lot of people, I've been stuck here too, where I can see the path and I've got all of the tools, but it's that whole idea that you've got a tragic flaw, that there's something fundamentally not okay about you, that, you would be able to do it if you were just a little better, and then you stay just so far away from all of the things that you want instead of fully embodying them and fully accepting them. And you continually have these people in your life that you're like, oh, if it wasn't for them, if I could just get them out of my life. And so it's realizing all the power is here. All the power is in your ability to respond to what is. It's this whole master phrase of given this, what is wanted. And it's so important and so powerful to realize, especially because these are issues for everybody. I mean, everybody is going through some kind of version of this. But if you're a person who is actually actively working to heal yourself because you aware of how your conflicts, how these things going on in your life are impacting you at a cellular level, you're so unaware that your state of unrest, your state of agitation has been sending messages to your cells saying, hey, red alert, we need to reinforce this, we need to make changes on the cellular level. And so now you actually have a physical manifestation of the fact that you've been in a state of not ease, in a state of anxiety, in a state of worry, in a state of fear. And so you've got to deal with not only your relationship to this physical thing going on, but still you're dealing with all the people in your life. And so it's all the more reason to say, let me get my power back. Let me realize where my power actually lies, and it's in how I'm responding to the things in my life? And is the way I'm responding improving what it's like to be me? Are the things that I'm thinking about, the things that I'm believing about myself, am I even aware of what I'm thinking about and what I'm believing? Because that's kind of welcome to anybody who's new and has never watched our videos before. Hello, we never introduce ourselves. We just talk like you know us. But one of the first things we do is help you to develop awareness. And that, for me, I mean, it's the first step, but it's almost the trickiest step. It's so hard to get a handle on what is it that I'm really thinking? What is it that I'm actively believing about myself, the world, and other people? And they're saying that that's the thing that's causing my life to be the way that it is. And so that's, I mean, why the course that we have is so fundamental, because it's like step by step by step. Let's break it down into like the most chewable size pieces for you to kind of start getting a handle on what it's like to be you, what it's made out of, because it's made out of all of these like words that we've been saying, meaning assignment and beliefs and thoughts and those things, because I can't put them in front of you and show them to you because they exist in this like invisible world called your mind. It's back behind your eyes in a place that you cannot see. It's hard to talk about sometimes.
It's like the source code of the computer. Like you can't see the source code of the computer. You can see manifestations of the source code. You can see the desktop. You can see the different programs that the computer can run, but you can't see the code itself. You can't look at it directly. You know what I'm saying? And that's why it's so hard to. And the other thing too is awareness is the very first thing that you were enjoined against. You know what I'm saying? If you ever saw your parents being inconsistent and you said, well, if you say this, how come you do this? And they yelled at you or something like that. And the thing too is that we were enjoined indirectly. No one ever said, excuse me, stop being so aware because it's inconvenient to me and you're asking questions that I don't want to have to answer. It's an implicit injunction against being aware. And because it's so implicit, because it's a thing that's your birthright, like it is your right to understand yourself and how your creative process works, right? But it's inconvenient for other people for you to be too in control of your experience, because then they can't coerce you into doing the things, the behaviors that they really want you to do in order to get their approval, because you don't need their approval because you are creating your own experience. So as society, teachers, our parents, our family members, without even meaning to, they unconsciously, indirectly, implicitly undermine your capacity for awareness. And so when it comes time for us to kind of like help bring this thing back out, we have to kind of do it in that kind of indirect way too. We have to say, oh, and look over here, and then they'll look up, and we show you all these dots. And like if you put up all these dots and you look at the dots long enough, a pattern begins to emerge. You start to hallucinate little lines connecting all those dots, and you say, oh, that's interesting. There's a really interesting pattern there with it. Oh yeah, that's how it works. That's how you create that stuff. There were some really good comments here. Rachel said that she started switching over to I'm okay, you're okay, and the person wasn't into it. That's exactly what happens. And they won't know why they're not. They just know it's not working for them anymore. You're just no longer a match. It's just not. It's just not working. It just isn't working the same way. It's like you recruited this guy to be in a play, and you gave him his script, and he's like, okay, yeah, that's pretty much like what my script is, and here's your script, and yours is like you're not okay. His is like I am okay. He's the persecutor. You're the victim. And it was like midway through, you said, well, I don't really feel like I'm your victim anymore, and I'm not actually going to let you persecute me anymore. And he's standing there, and he's nonplussed, right? That's the word. Doesn't know what to do. It's like you guys were in a play, and all of a sudden you just totally changed up the lines, and he's just sort of like, they kind of look at you. Like, this is the funny thing: when one or the other person in the relationship switches things up because they become aware and they just can't do this shit anymore, they cannot continue to have the same fight about the same thing, pretending it's different and new, and they just don't do it. Very often, people will react with despair or with rage because they are existentially threatened by that, because they feel almost betrayed, because you're breaking the agreement, the unspoken, implicit, kind of ironclad experiential agreement this relationship was based upon. It's really interesting to see the different ways that people respond to stuff. Well,
that's really funny, because that just an example of that was Steve and I in like our argument patterns or like fighting patterns was I had a certain script, and like my previous relationship, like we had it down. Like we knew exactly how to argue, how to fight, how to kind of retreat, how to feel bad, how to get the I'm sorry, how to get the okay, everything's okay now. And when I tried to like do that, like it literally felt that way. It really felt like you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Like this is the part that you say this now, and this is the part that you come give me a hug, and then everything's okay. But it was like it just wasn't, he didn't have that script. And so when I tried to, and again, it's so well programmed in me to respond in this certain way, or it was anyways, to have arguments and have fights, and for it to kind of follow this certain formula, was just a whole formula of exactly how this whole thing's supposed to go. And when he's not participating, I'm like, this is really frustrating. Like, it felt weird. I was like, this is weird. You're not fulfilling this thing for me.
And the interesting thing about it was, though, but you're not allowed to be conscious of this pattern that you're running.
No.
And so you can't even know exactly why you're feeling so uncomfortable. That was, you know what I mean? That was a really funny thing. And I didn't know what was going on either. I was just kind of following my, like, do not step into that spotlight kind of feeling. You know, I didn't know what I was doing. It was just kind of like the dynamic of the relationship. And so, like, Janaea here is like, in current situation. Now, see, the magic about that, Janaea, is that, like, when you don't wish that your current situation were other than it is, because that was the thing for me for a long time, and sometimes even now I'll be like, oh, I just wish this would work out, and then I'll be really ready to respond resourcefully to the next thing. And it's kind of like a little unproductive delayed gratification, because it's like, no, this is perfect right now. I'm so happy that the situation is like it is. And then it's like, and it's like, I don't not believe that. I don't not believe that. It feels new. We were talking about, like, when you think a new thought, and it almost, like, thinking the thought, it feels almost like opening up, like, a can of carbonated drink sounds, like that sound. It's just very, whether you like carbonated drinks or not, like, that sound is very satisfying. Yeah. And sometimes when you think these new thoughts, in the moment where that thought is really needed, it for the first time, it's like cracking open a can of something that's really it's like, oh man, that's refreshing, that's new, that's a thought I haven't thought before. And there's this exhilaration to it, and to me, that's the realization, oh, I can respond resourcefully to this. Oh, I can really respond resourcefully to this because it feels good to me. And then the really great thing is when you forget to do that and you don't respond resourcefully and you resist the fact that something's going on, and then you realize that you resisted it, and you respond resourcefully to the fact that a moment ago you weren't responding resourcefully. So resistance is not a really great thing, right? Resistance is the source of all suffering. Resistance is what kind of disconnects you from your creative process. The wonderful thing about resistance, which is like the worst thing in the world, it still has something useful about it, which is that when you resist, you give yourself the perfect opportunity to not resist the fact that you just resisted, to respond resourcefully to resistance. And as bad as resisting resistance feels, responding resourcefully to resistance by letting it be okay feels so much better, because you just systematically, this is pretty much like what our life consists of right now, is like systematically rooting out all these different scenarios that we think could force us to feel some way we don't want to feel, going there and creating an experiential reference point, a personal experiential reference point for responding resourcefully and creating an experience there that we want. And when we know that, it's like that's what we're doing. It's like we're playing a video game. And like for such a long time, like my whole thing, and this is my mantra for years, I know exactly what I need to do to create what I want. And as soon as I get what I want, I'm going to do what I have to do to create what I want. And so I had inverted things in a really interesting way, right? As soon as things get better, as soon as my reality improves, I'll respond resourcefully to it, right? Just give me that, get me out of school, give me that computer, give me that good relationship, give me that whatever, and I'll respond resourcefully to everything. When of course, resourceful response to what is always kind of the prerequisite for creating that stuff. And it's not about what you're supposed to do or what you have to do. It's about what feels good to do. It's about what experiences well to do. And the interesting thing about that is that, like, it's such a recalibration to make yourself the measure of all things, to stop saying, it's not your business to punish other people. It's not your business to respond in the expected way to what someone else is doing. You become kind of a wonderfully weird person when you step back and you start evaluating things based on the impact that it's going to have on what it's like to be you. You behave in a way that from the outside is totally unpredictable. Sometimes you give them a piece of your mind. Sometimes you just let it slide. Sometimes you're just not even there to have that fight. Sometimes you break up. Sometimes you're more patient than you've ever been at any point in your life before. Sometimes, you don't know how it's going to manifest, but you know that it's going to manifest in ways that are perfectly calibrated for improving your experience. No one's ever done your life before. No one's ever been you before. No one's ever had your experiences and your desires before. And so, excuse me, no one can really tell you what the best thing to do is, except for you, of course. But the one thing that you have to do to really know what's right for you in a given moment in time is the first thing that we were all told not to do. Don't be too aware. Don't see things that you're not supposed to see. I mean, I remember that as a kid, seeing things. I remember very early on having this sensation that I was seeing something that I probably shouldn't be seeing. Witnessing something, whether it was an inappropriate thing or whether it was just some... I so early on was building in my mind a little inner parent to regulate my perception, not just my behavior. Oh, Steve, don't do that. You might get in trouble. Oh, Steve, don't see that. Oh, Steve, don't be aware of that. Oh, Steve, don't pick up on those things, because if you pick up on those things and they find out you picked up on them, they're going to embarrass you, or they're going to be mad at you, or they're going to think that you shouldn't have seen that, or whatever. And it's like really getting back to being able to pay attention to what it's like to be you. So this is the thing, a lot of people are not allowed to think, like their rationality is discounted. And so they stop becoming aware of thought, intelligent insights, of their own intelligence and ability to think. Other people had their intuition discounted, right? If you knew something and they didn't think that you should be able to know it, they would basically punish you for giving. And so people are out of touch with their intuition, and so they don't know how to listen to that. Other people have had their emotions discounted. And so if I get in trouble for expressing emotions, right, for being angry or sad or whatever, and I get punished for expressing those emotions, how can I avoid? What's the best way to avoid getting punished for expressing those emotions, to avoid expressing them? What's the best way to avoid expressing my emotions? Well, it'd be great if I didn't even know what kind of emotions I was having. Let me become less aware of how I'm feeling, because then I won't get in trouble for expressing feelings that aren't acceptable in my family environment. You know what I mean? And so it's about expanding that awareness, paying attention to what you're doing, not like what you're doing in your head, how you're seeing, but becoming aware of that stuff. It's just eminently powerful.
I love what you said here, Janaea, about time for some new scripts in my play. I'm tired of the reruns. And that's the whole thing. If you get Steve's email, he's always talking about put a new show on the road. That's what it is. It's like your own show. This is true autonomy. Like, I'm sick of, why do I have so many, people in my play that are negative? This whole talk is about how do I deal with these negative people in my life? What is it about your script, your kind of what you expect out of life and how you expect people to behave? Why are you expecting certain people to be very negative? And why are you responding to them in the way that you are? You're like, oh, I was doing that out of awareness. I wasn't doing it with full autonomy and full realization that I am the author of my life play, of how I get to see the world and how I choose to invite people into my life and into my experience. And now that you are aware, look at amazing things can start to happen in your relationship to other people.
Yeah, it's sort of like, imagine a director or like a screenwriter or whatever who is complaining about the characters, I mean, you think, well, why don't you change those things up? And you will as soon as you know that you can. Like, when you start thinking about it in that way, it's like, oh, of course, that makes perfect sense. And like, that's the wonderful thing to me, is like responding resourcefully, which is responding in ways that improve what it's like to be you. Like, make your experience 1% better. Make your experience of them 1% better. And that's like the beliefs course that we have coming out pretty soon. It's this really like stepwise way that you can start actually doing something to create new beliefs instead of just talking about beliefs. And I'm guilty of this too. Like, spending a lot of time talking about the idea of beliefs and how important beliefs are and they create your life and blah, blah, blah. Okay, what do I do, right? What functionally in this moment, I can think a thought. I can't believe something new. I can think something maybe a little different than I've thought before. What do I think to step in the direction of believing something new? And it really is about that. It's like, it's respond. And some people will say, I don't know how to respond resourcefully. I have no idea. Okay, well, will you respond resourcefully to the fact that you're not sure exactly how to respond resourcefully? Because if you say that means I don't know how to do this, that means I'm stupid, that means this won't work, that means, well, that's maybe not that resourceful. Like, there is a way to respond resourcefully to whatever's going on. Like, a lot of people, I say, well, focus on what you want. I don't know what I want. Well, do you want to know what you want? Okay, that's what you want. You want that feeling of knowing and certainty. You can even focus on that. Literally, like, you'd have so much flexibility. We're so used to being wrong, and we're so used to, like, the teacher wanting us to give some, like, obscure, specific answer to something and then not being able to guess it, that we're like getting it wrong machines. You know what I'm saying? Because I know I grew up around people who wanted me to get things wrong, and I knew people who would say, oh, pat you on your head and say, oh yeah, this is how it really is. And I was rewarded for being wrong more than for being right. You know what I mean? And just giving yourself permission to have all the right answers all the time, internally. Do you know what I mean? And it's not anyone else's imposed answers. It's just like checking inside and just knowing. Like this is like your show. And making mistakes aren't a problem. Having problems aren't a problem. It's all just stuff to respond resourcefully to. That's the master skill. That's the master skill. And when you recognize that, you stop telling yourself the story, which says, oh, that's the reason I can't have what I want. Oh, that's the critical mistake that I made. Oh, that's the error. That it's just bullshit. You throw it all out, and it's amazing what you instantly become and what you instantly experience yourself to be when you stop filtering everything through the lens of that. You know what I mean? Like when you start allowing yourself, when the basic presupposition is I'm okay and I'm always getting better and I can have what I want. And like something you mentioned too about desiring and deserving. It's like when you stop imagining there's a difference between desiring something and deserving it. You know what I'm saying? When it's like one thing. And at the same time, I like to kind of go to both ends of that. Desiring and deserving is one and the same. And on the other hand, as soon as I deserve something, I have it. And if I don't have it yet, it's because I don't quite deserve it yet. Because that for me is the only meaningful definition of deserving that I can think of, which is like that which gets me what I want. But I'm capable of deserving anything that I want, which is to say I'm capable of finding out a way of getting anything that I want, which is to say that for anything that I want, there's a way to get it. There's a way of thinking, of feeling, of assigning meaning, of experiencing myself. And that's one of the things is like a lot of the time deserving something means finding a way to feel as if you deserve it when you haven't felt that way before. And I just like to have all the different ways of thinking about it, right? And I find that so useful. I find that such a useful thing that says, is it okay that I don't have this thing yet, this feeling yet, this experience of myself? Yeah, it's perfectly fine. When will I have it? Well, as soon as I deserve it. Well, how do I deserve it? Well, I find the way of thinking that gets it for me. I find a way to react to the reality. And so it takes something like deserving or worthiness, and it takes it from being an intrinsic trait that you either have or you don't, or that you don't have because your parents said you didn't, or you don't have because they didn't say you did, and it becomes an activity. I got to find the way of being, right? Being is an activity that evokes from my reality the experiences and the results that I want. And then it's a fun game. And then it's fun because you're not trying to justify yourself or to feel okay. You already feel okay, and now you're looking for feeling better. And that's the thing. However you're feeling is never good enough. It's always better is the only thing that's ever good enough. And this is kind of a fun, dynamic way of existing.
Sammy asks, can you touch on the difference between intuition and thought to feeling?
I'm not sure.
Clarify the question.
Yeah, maybe just clarify
really
that
sure.
question. I think I might have an idea of what you mean. I would say intuition is, so this is kind of like the ego state stuff that we've kind of talked about in passing here and there. Sometimes you know things without really knowing why you know them. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just have these feelings that those things are true. And what you want is kind of the ability to respond to that, to heed that, to pay attention to that source of information, while also, I think, staying in touch with reality. So assessing your reality, assessing what's going on. Because a lot of people, they have one of two things that happen. If their intuition tells them something, they cannot accept any information that doesn't confirm what their intuition suggested. But your intuition is working off of incomplete information. It's seeing patterns, it's seeing background stuff, it's doing its best to kind of see around corners that you can't be seeing around. And so like if my intuition tells me there's something wonderful around the corner, and I go look around the corner and my eyeballs tell me that something terrible is around the corner, well, I need to be prepared to say, okay, intuition, maybe it's the next corner that you were thinking of. Versus, I think, thought and focus are probably different things. So like the thoughts just kind of bubble up. The focus is like that, the consciousness that like takes a train of thought and says, this is true, this is reality, let's push this ball down this hill and get this momentum going. And then feeling to me is just what the thought experience is like. Feeling is like the thought in your body. Feeling is just the emotion. I think that hopefully that's useful.
So one other thing I wanted to talk about was the dealing with like negative people in your life and turning down the invitations.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's really good and that's really what it is so many times, and this has to do with everything we've been talking about, the people that we've attracted into our lives and how they behave towards us and how we interact with them and their, our perception of their negativity. A lot of times we just don't have an experiential reference point in our past history of having an opportunity to get really upset about something, to perceive someone as very negative, and to decline the invitation. And so that, allowing yourself to almost get excited for the next time someone in your life is being uncooperative, is being negative, is being some way that you don't want them to be, and to practice the skill of declining the invitation, of realizing, of like creating that buffer. Like that for me has been a really, because I'm very visual, anytime I can take a concept and make it visual for me is very helpful. Is like creating this buffer between like the stuff that people like choose to say and whatever and however it is, and the way that I choose to feel about it. Like to have like this area that's just kind of like decontaminating the feedback that's coming in, to realize, like to help to neutralize it so that I can take it for what it is, and not, because before I had no buffer at all. It's like you say this, boom, I already feel this way. I've already got everything I'm going to say. All of like my rage and like irritation is already bubbled up just at like the look, but to really just start to slow your experience down, to create a buffer between what's going on, what they're saying, how they're acting, what is going on out there, and how I'm going to accept and allow it into my physiological, emotional space, because that's what it's doing. It's influencing you at a cellular level, and it's, do I want that affecting me at a cellular level? How do I want it to affect me? Do I want to use this experience as an opportunity to respond resourcefully in a way I never have before? Because I know I'm capable of doing that. I've never done it before, but I believe that I can do it. Other people say that they can do it, and there seems to be a way. Why don't I give it a try? And the next time you encounter a negative person, you see the invitation, you see, and this is awareness in action too, is you see what you want to say, you see how the whole thing could go, and then you see another version, or you see multiple other versions, and you say, there are so many different ways that I could respond right now, and you start to experience yourself as consciously able to choose from this variety of options, instead of feeling that you have to respond in a way that you always have. Because that for me was so huge. That's this whole master pattern of awareness, responsibility, choice. It's like, how can I be responsible? They did this, I am feeling this way. It's just cause and effect. But when you realize that you've got a range of choices, you've got a range of options, you can choose to decline those invitations from these people in your life, and you can use that as proof to yourself that you've got power you didn't know you had before.
And the thing for me too is beginning to recognize that it's a wonderful experience to consciously choose to decline an invitation to create a not wonderful experience. And so this is not about breaking even. This is not about not feeling bad. We're recognizing really that these negative people or these unpleasant interactions are affording you an opportunity to choose consciously to feel better than you've ever felt in the past in similar circumstances. And there's tremendous value there. I mean, when you're really kind of like allowing yourself to be as resourceful as you are, you recognize that that's not an opportunity to not get angry. That's an opportunity to feel empowered. That's an opportunity to say, I'm consciously creating my life. That's an opportunity to there's something about when you know that you can respond resourcefully to things that aren't going that great, people behaving in ways that you don't really like, that allows you to really enjoy relationships that are going well, that allows you to really enjoy people who are behaving in ways that make you feel good. You can accept compliments when you know that you can respond resourcefully to criticism. You're not afraid of it, because you can have people admire you and not be worried about screwing it up. Oh my God, this person said something so nice. Well, God, I hope I don't upset them. Oh, if I found out that they feel, you don't want to spend your life doing that. You want to be able to really enjoy things going well without being fearful that something's going to come up and go wrong. Because to the degree that you're worried about that stuff, you'll tend to create it unconsciously and unintentionally. And so when things do go wrong, that's just all that is an opportunity that you, with your infinite wisdom, provided yourself, created in your experience, so that you can craft, right? So that you can, sculpt a personal experiential reference point of responding resourcefully to that. You don't worry about things that you've already mastered responding resourcefully to, because, what if it happens? Well, you'll do the same great thing you did last time and everything will be fine. And when you recognize that, it's like, this is better than okay that this happened. This is perfect that this happened. That's like such a really useful thing. It's like the way that happens, of this whole thing, how could I respond differently to that, is that, like, for example, for me growing up, one of the things that I learned by watching other people was that if someone's belligerent to you, well, then you're belligerent right back to them. And belligerence is not really in my nature at all. I'm just not, it's not natural for me to get upset about things in a kind of like aggressive way. But I found myself kind of like aping that behavior, because that was just the behavior that I saw when I was growing up. If someone was aggressive in a parking lot with me, or something like that, I felt like, oh, fuck you too, and all, and I would hear myself saying this, and I would feel myself feeling kind of like the feelings that I had to generate in order to behave in that way. And I was like, none of this is real. Like, this isn't really authentic. I don't really even care about it. Maybe he can have the parking spot, or he could, whatever. But basically, I did it a certain number of times, and because I didn't have an experiential reference point for ever behaving in any other way, in response to a person, say, being belligerent or aggressive to me, it becomes very easy to assign a meaning to that, which is when a person does that, the way that you feel is this, and then you have to behave this way. And if you're lucky, you have to feel this way, and then you force yourself not to behave this way because socially that's not considered, classy or appropriate. But you still have to feel that kind of way. And when I began to realize that, just because I haven't created a more resourceful experience of someone being belligerent before now, doesn't mean it can't be done, right? Doesn't mean that it's not possible. When I started thinking about that, people would come at me and I'd feel kind of like I'd get ready, I'd be ready to go. But then I'd say, oh, wait a minute, hang on a second. I can. This is one of those times, right? And eventually, one magical day, what happens is that your knee-jerk response is something different than it's ever been before. You are unconsciously responding resourcefully because you've consciously recalibrated what you're doing. And then you recognize, and it becomes funny. What happens is things that used to piss you off make you laugh in spite of yourself. And then it's almost like you try to get mad, but you can't. I remember one of the times I tried to get mad at you and I couldn't. You had done something or not done something or something like that, and I was in the kitchen, and I started to get this like, oh God, this is what I'm talking about. And it welled up, the anger, kind of welled up inside. I don't even think you were there, but it was just like one of those seething kind of anger things, and it came up and it came up and it came up, and it was gonna happen, and it just went. It was as if like we just pulled the plug on this this live thing is going, and then it's not. It happened just like that, and then I was like, God, what a fucking sham all of this negative emotion really is. Because even if I don't pull the plug on things that I don't want to be feeling, I know I can't not know now that it's not possible to do that. I can't not know that I could do it if I really found the plug and did it. And that's kind of a miracle of experience when you recognize that, and you start building personal experiential reference points for responding differently, and you come out so much better. Because I know happy people who aren't really all that conscious. They were lucky in the sense that they inherited like resourceful patterns from really nice. So one of the nicest ladies in the world, who was my German tutor when I was growing up. It's a super sweet lady. And she was just naturally that way. I mean, her parents just raised her in a way where she's just so nice and gentle and calm all the time. I used to wish that I was like her. I used to wish that I had parents. But now I'm actually happy, right? That I spend as much time sort of being the me that I was, right? And learning consciously how to be this way. Because two great things happen. What it's like to be me is wonderful, and I've had my capacity and ability to appreciate equanimity, right, and consciously generating an experience that I like for me is really wonderful. And I've kind of passion for other people, and kind of like I've recognized, like, if I can do it, you can do it. Like, no, literally, because I used to think all the things that I imagine you might be thinking now about how you can't and how this and that doesn't work for you. I'm like, no, all of that was true for me too. And that's one of those things, when you can allow things that are true for you right now to be true for you without deciding that means that those things are always going to be true for you, nothing's a big problem. You can discover shit about yourself you really don't like and you're not happy about, and it's not a problem. You have a problem, but having a problem is not a problem. It's just an opportunity to find a solution. It's just an opportunity to move towards what you want. It's just clarifying your desire. It's no big deal. It's okay. I mean, sometimes things aren't okay, and that's okay. Do you know what I mean? There's always just this, like, reality is always just kind of encrusted and, ensconced in this okayness. And there's this resourceful response that flows forward from that. As soon as you give yourself the advantage of not going down that infinite regression of, oh, but what about this, and what about this, and that's wrong, but then this happened, and that didn't happen, and he said this, and then she said this, so I have to da-da-da. It's always like, it's like knee-jerk. You just start responding resourcefully when you pull the plug on all the bullshit storytelling about why it's not okay, why you have to resist this, why anybody would be upset about that and all that. When you start to practice it, it just becomes a way of life for you, and you begin to do amazing things. It's funny to me when people are like really impressed with, I don't know, us handling a situation really well or something like that. And I'm just like, listen, it's information processing is all it is, and that doesn't always make sense. I mean, but to people when the first time they hear it, but like literally, you do what serves you when you're choosing consciously. And to the degree that any person in the world chooses consciously, they choose what serves them, and it looks elegant. It is beautiful. Consciousness is an inherently beautiful thing when it's operating on full force. You know what I'm saying? Like when you are really fully consciously, autonomously, with awareness, being who you are, it's a beautiful and an elegant thing to witness, and it feels beautiful and it feels elegant, and there's like self-enthusiasm there. There's like a healthy kind of. I was talking to Sammy earlier about this idea of self-infatuation. There's an intuitiveness into your experience that doesn't come at the expense of other people. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm so much cooler than them now. It's like, man, no, it's all fucking awesome, and it's great, and I can create what I want, and they can create what they want, and I'm okay and they're okay, and there's not like a limited reservoir of okayness from which we have to split things up, and then everyone starts really kind of flourishing.
Yes. So how do you neutralize buffer? An example, for me, it's watching. It's building this part of yourself that's watching with curiosity how you create your experience, and it is kind of like think of it there, with a clipboard, watching what's going on, watching the negative person say the thing, do the thing, watching, and then watching it come into your awareness, and watching those automatic, what happens automatically? What do you say to yourself as a knee-jerk? What story do you tell yourself? Oh, they did this again, and this means this about me. There is so much that goes on in that split second before, like when you realize that someone is being negative or doing something you don't want them to do, there is a space there that we want to widen. That before is very small, and you do that by watching and observing, and you just get better and better and better at it. Like the example that you just gave, you just kind of widen that space, and when you start to see, this is how I respond. This is what I tell myself. This is the story that I tell myself. This is the thing that I remember. And this is why I go ahead and respond in this way that doesn't improve what it's like to be me. I even really know that it's going to go down a bad path. I know that it's going to get worse. I know this is going to turn into a big fight or whatever it's going to be. I know that. And again, being graceful with yourself and realizing that, they're going to be that way. I'm going to still respond in the same old ways I've always responded, letting that be okay, and just watch the whole thing happen. The more you watch, the more you observe, the more like you've got that part of you that's watching, and it's got a notebook and it's saying, okay, we're going to become a little bit more aware of this each time it happens, and we're going to let it be okay each time it happens. And soon enough, you will find that you are no longer able to engage with that person in the way you were before. Maybe those buttons they were pressing on you aren't there anymore at all as well. And so it's all this continual, gradual elevation of awareness of what's going on in those moments. And it's like it's absolutely an amazing process to start to do.
The more you look, the more you see, and the more you see, the more you look, the more inclined you are, because there's a there, there's a lot of stuff to see that you're not seeing before, and it's that watching thing, and nothing ever needs to be other than it is in order for you for this thing to work. That's a key thing too. And so if you forget yourself, or if stuff will come and exceed your threshold, and you'll respond exactly as you do. That's always true. The quality of how you respond will change as a result of you observing the fact that you respond as well as you do, and then not resisting the fact that you don't respond better. That's that way. Some people never look at anything. They're totally unconscious. Other people, they kind of pay attention and they see themselves doing something that's not serving them, and then they start beating themselves up, and they stop paying attention. They distract themselves with self-castigation, with self-condemnation, with self-criticism, when if they would just watch that process in a non-judgmental way, if they would just allow their awareness to expand, that awareness, as this is like the OxyClean of experience, that it gets the stains out. Like awareness is this thing that removes unresourceful patterns from your life. You watch that stuff and you say, isn't this interesting? And so if you can watch yourself, so for example, know that what you're about to say is not going to serve you, it's not going to help the argument or the situation. Watch yourself know it's not going to serve you, and watch yourself still say it anyway, still want to say it anyway. Let that be okay. You say, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that I could know it wasn't going to serve me, and yet I could still have my criteria fulfilled for saying it. I still wanted to say, that's interesting. I want to, and look at it, and then it happened, and then I felt bad, and it's all just really interesting. There must be something here that I haven't seen yet, because if I had seen it all, this wouldn't be happening, right? If I had witnessed everything, right? If I had really captured it all, there's something that I'm missing, and that's okay, but I'm going to watch really carefully, because this is an interesting thing. I want to figure out how I do this. Recognizing that you create create and there's like the you that you experience yourself to be. And that's real, and that's true, and that's an important part of who you are. But there's also a you that exists beyond that you're sort of broader than you realize. Just as an example, there's the you that beats your heart 100,000 times a day. There's the you that is your heart, that grows your hair, that grows your skin, does all this different stuff. And so the we that we experience ourselves to be is really kind of like a fraction of the total we that we are. And when you kind of, think about that, it starts to make sense to you. It seems a little weird at first, but then you're like, well, no, I'm not sitting here going beat, 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 beat. Something's doing that, right? And if I, the ego, the thing behind the eyes is me, well, surely the thing that's making my heart beat, that's got to be me too, right? Because if that stops, then the guy back here stops too. You realize that you create and you experience at different levels. So you're creating your experience at one level, you're experiencing your experience at another. Most people stay down in that experience level. And when you do that, you're stuck with what you got, right? If what's going on upstairs is not really working, if it's not really creating the kind of experience that you want, you can't do anything about it because you're stuck at the experiencing level. Awareness allows you to begin to kind of go into, to tap into, to access the level of creation. And that's when you stop experiencing yourself as a victim. When your life and your experience and what it's like to be you is not something that's happening to you or being done to you, but it's something that you're actually doing. You expand your definition, your understanding of yourself. You go up to the 100th floor and you say, excuse me, there's some meanings that are being assigned here that might seem fine up here, but down at the level of experience, they're not too great. It's not good down there, right? So can we change some of those meanings? And up there, they're like, what are you talking about? Who are you? We've never seen you up here before, right? And they're reluctant to change. But when you keep coming up there, when you keep going up and watching what's happening at the level of creation, take an interest in your creative process, how you make sense out of thinking and feeling and believing and doing and assigning meaning and all this different stuff, eventually it starts to change. And that's what you want, is you want that freedom to exist at the level of the experiencer and also at the level of the creator of the experience. Like most of our day, we're kind of like, I'd say like 80-20, you know what I'm saying? We're 80% experiencer, 20% kind of paying attention to what's going on. And if a problem, if there's like a blip, if there's like the assembly line shuts down, or like, I don't know, quality control, like experiential quality control, it's like the toys start coming out and they're like all messed up and they're not passing the test, or like that thing like Lucille Ball, like where she was like the chocolate sampler.
Yeah, there's just going too fast.
Problems come out, then it's like, okay, let's go 80% creator, 20% experience. So if I'm feeling emotions or experiences that I don't like, it's like I'm 80% in creative mode. I'm looking at patterns, I'm looking at meanings, I'm looking at beliefs, I'm looking at all this different stuff, and I'm vaguely aware. I've got like just my big toe in my experience. I'm just aware of like what's going on so that I can kind of be changing that other stuff. But most people, they've had it up to here in negative experience, right? And they're barely in that kind of creative zone at all. Having that ability to get on that elevator, that's the awareness is like that key that lets you turn it and get on the elevator and go up and actually change kind of like what that creative process is. If it's a part of what it's like to be you, it's coming from you. That means you can do something about it, and it's okay if you can't see exactly what it is that you're doing, and it's okay if you can't understand right now exactly what you could do to create something different. It has to be enough that you know exactly as much as you do about how powerful you are, right? You've always got to let it be okay that you are as in touch with how powerful you are as you are, or not more. You'll never be more in touch with how powerful you are than you are at a given moment in time. So just get used to it. That's a skill in and of itself. To the degree that you let it be okay that you know that that you are as in touch with your power as you are, you become more in touch with it. You begin to experience yourself as powerful as you actually are. You start adding conscious to the choice process. It becomes conscious choice. It starts serving you more. You get addicted to it. Your life gets really wonderful.
Yeah, and especially when you have the awareness of GNM and how the experience, the stuff that's going on up here is affecting you at the cellular level. When you can see that whole story, and when you completely you get it, you understand, this isn't a punishment, this isn't a bad thing that's happening to me because I did this. It's merely a response. It's a response to some experience that I'm having. My tissues are responding to it in a certain way. When you kind of see it from that point of view, and you realize that when you change the experience, when you kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it. Let me see how I've been creating this continual experience of separation or anger or worry or, self-devaluation for years and years and years. It's made out of something. It's made out of something that's going on inside your mind. And so for you to start to get a handle on that, to start to shine the light of your awareness into the creative process, like start looking in the factory and figure out, why are my cells creating more cells? Why are they doing that? Oh, it's because they're getting a signal of this from the things that I'm thinking about. Isn't that interesting? And so just to realize that all of the power that you have, it is in your thought, it's in the direction of your focus, it's in becoming more aware of how you create the experience of what it's like to be you. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. I think that was a really great talk. If you have any questions, if you need any assistance, if you're interested in coaching with us, whether it's for GNM or if it's for overall mindset and lifestyle, we also have our 10-module online course. We have a mini course coming out in about a week, all about beliefs. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Please send us a message and we can kind of get you hooked up and get ready for that. So anything else to add?
No, do it now. It's time.
Do it now. It's time.
If you're ready to do it, like now is the time to do it for
yeah.
sure. Like, and that's one of those things, like, don't do it before, but don't wait a moment after you're actually ready. Because when you invest in yourself, it's never a bad choice. I mean, we happen to be excellent at what we do, but the thing is, like, when it comes to connecting you to your resources, it's not, we're not going to like impart anything to you. We're actually going to help you access things that are already there. And I think that's why we're so effective. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a nice, in the past I couldn't say I'm an awesome at what I do. I'm like the best in the world at what I do, but I really genuinely feel that that's true. And I think it's because we have a respect for you and an appreciation and a capacity to, like, you really have everything that you need. You know what I'm saying? And that's like what you want. I think is somebody who you want someone who kind of knows that there's not things that you're lacking and like genuinely is convicted of that. Like, I don't fucking believe you in your problems. I believe in you and what you are capable of doing. And if you have a person who's like a little bit crazy in that regard and willing to be just sort of audaciously invested in you and your capacity, it helps you kind of access stuff that you've got. You know what I'm saying? I think about it like, and I don't know if we've used this example before, but like you have a plot of land, you know what I'm saying? Your mind, your consciousness, and it has such an incredible amount of natural resources in it. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're living on top of, I don't know, oil's a bad example now because people don't like the environment, but like let's just say it's like the 1800s and you have lots of oil, right? And you maybe are going to have someone help you kind of extricate that stuff, access that stuff, leverage that stuff. Look, there he is back there. That's kind of like what we do. It's like we're going to help you sort of evoke from yourself the magic that's already there. When because I'll be honest with you, I used to think that there was something wrong with people. I used to think that they needed my help, and I would be kind of reasonably effective in that and everything. And to the degree that that was a manifestation of thinking that there was a lot of things wrong with me. There's a lot of things wrong with me. There's a lot of things wrong with you. Maybe I can help you fix the things that are wrong with you, and it'll work out. When I started believing there was nothing wrong with you, because I started discovering there's really nothing wrong with me, all of a sudden it went from like the coach or the mentor and the person down here to like two human beings here that are sort of evoking wonderment from each other. Things really took off in a magnificent way. And so find somebody, find something. You have to invest in yourself, though. It's so worthwhile. Like it says, like I think about myself now. If I'm not spending money on myself, if I'm not accessing more of the resources that I have and like putting money into doing that, the problem is not necessarily what I'm not coming into contact with. The problem is like the implication, like what I'm communicating to myself, which is like, there's nothing really in there worth getting out. You know what I'm saying? There's not a lot of potential within me that's not being accessed. And just the act of investing in that way and like full faith, which is to say, it doesn't even matter really what I do. I'm just going to do something to evoke something from me, and I have this confidence in my ability to utilize any information I come into contact with. And that's one of the things too for like at the course when I built this. I was like, I wanted to equip people so that they could benefit from everything that happens in their life. Wouldn't that be nice if it didn't matter what was going on for you, if you could literally just make sense out of responding resourcefully to it and derive the seed of greater benefit? Napoleon Hill has this quote that says, every adversity is the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. And I said, I want to build a course that allows people to actually not believe or know that's true, but to experience that is true, to feel that is true, so that when things happen in your life, you say, oh, that's grist for my mill. I can grind that up and turn that into the kind of life that I want. And so that's really what we have set out to do. And if that sounds good to you, we would really, really love to work with you. Like, we get excited, right? Like when, especially people who've kind of been hanging around the perimeter for a while, around the periphery, and like we know that they're thinking about doing it, and then they finally go for it. It's like the celebration that we have is like, oh, they are going to just fucking love this. They're going to do so incredibly well with this because you've got a lot of magic in there. And as soon as you tap into that stuff, it's like, that's it. It's game over. It's game begins. You know what I'm saying? But in terms of your doubt, your uncertainty, your any concern at all about you not being capable of creating the kind of life that you want is just gone. It's just, all right, let's figure out precisely what it's going to look like for you to create the kind of life that you want. That's upgrading the quality of your problem. You know what I'm saying? That's like going from like problems that you don't want to have, problems that are problems, to problems that are opportunities. And that's a cool thing.
Yeah, that's what happened for me. Like, I do this because of what it did for me and how I've been able to tap into resources that I thought would just be locked away forever because of dysfunctions and problems that I had that were just unsolvable. But they're solvable, and it's fun, and it's very interesting because you are the most interesting person on the planet. So why wouldn't you kind of get the behind the scenes and see what's going on in there? So we love you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your night, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.